Hi, Matt from Modern Samurai here, and today we're going to look at circles within circles. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to read a person for self-defense. So what can we tell about a person? How can we tell things about a person? So before we get into that, guys, subscribe, click the bell notification, and obviously, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, let us know some of the other things you'd like to be talked about. So let's get on with this then. So circles within circles, what am I talking about? Now, many years ago, I had a conversation with a fortune teller. So I don't want to, upset anybody's beliefs or what have you. So that's, I'm not trying to take away from that. But I had a conversation with a fortune teller stroke medium who basically explained to me his version of doing things and how he did what he did. And it wasn't mystical, it wasn't magical, there wasn't any voices from the dead or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying they do or don't exist, that's a conversation for another day. But what I am saying is this particular chap, he'd been taught a way of doing it, and he gave me a brief outline of how that was done. Now, I have since gone on to use that within the door work and things like that for many, many times, and it's become very, very helpful. So what do I mean by circles within circles? Well, if we take a few obvious facts about a person. So when you first see somebody, there are a few obvious facts that you can tell. So regardless of whether that's a confrontational situation or not, but we're working on the premise of self-defense, so we're going to look at it from that point of view. Okay, so if I was a medium stroke fortune teller, I would look at that person and I would say, right, okay, what sort of age bracket are we talking about? So if the person is, sort of 40 plus, there's a very, very good chance that they have lost somebody close to them. And so that would be an outer circle. Okay, so that would be the first ring of the circle. So they would say, "Oh, I feel like you've lost somebody close to you," and then that person would either confirm or deny it. But the odds are they would confirm it. And then an inner circle would then be, they would start to fish around as to who that person might be, and they would start alluding to things and talking about things with open questions to lead people into that conversation, so that they could then get an inner circle. And that's how they break it down. Okay, so with regards to what we're doing, we could look at the age of a person as an outer circle. So we should say, okay, right, so statistically, 18 to 25 is the age group for males that are most likely to be physically assaulted or be involved in a physical assault. So once you get past the age of sort of 40 plus, the majority of people don't particularly want to be physical. Okay, that's not to say they can't, and there are some that will, but the vast majority don't particularly want to be physical at that point. Okay, so we can look at the age, we can look at dress. How is that person dressed? Are they dressed immaculately in a tailored suit? Are they dressed in a pair of wellies and corduroy jeans? Are they dressed in a builder's outfit? Are they dressed in those baggy joggers with their backside hanging out? How are they dressed? Again, we can make an assumption on that, and that's a straightforward one, because the way somebody dresses is a very bold statement as to how they want the world to perceive them. So that's not accidental. Okay, so aside from uniforms, and even uniforms aren't uniform because people wear them individually, but aside from uniforms, everybody tries to dress as an individual, and that the way that they dress is presenting a message to the world. So it's up to us to read that. So we can look at how they dress. We can then look at speech. Okay, if we know that much information about them, how do they talk? And I don't mean are they aggressive, are they loud? I mean, do they have a regional accent? Do they have a local accent? Do they speak, from a middle class sort of point of view? Have they had a good education? What are the words that they are using? Can they articulate a sentence correctly? Are they swearing a lot? So I'm not actually interested at the moment in whether or not they're angry or emotional. That's a slightly different thing, which we'll come back to. For the moment, what I'm trying to do is gauge the level of the individual. Okay, and then we look at sort of mannerisms. We can take a look and we can see how do they carry themselves, how do they present themselves, what's their physicality. So as an example, some people will sit with legs wide open in that sort of mansplaining position. Other people will perch right on the end of a chair with their legs crossed, almost hugging themselves, and that shows they're a little bit sort of anxious or a little bit self-confident. Okay, and then we can go on to things like tattoos, haircuts, stuff like that. So I mean, it's it's a very easy sort of thing to make judgments on people, but that's not what we're doing, in the sense that we're not deciding good, bad, right or wrong. What I'm doing is I'm reading the information given to me as to the likelihood of this person being violent, aggressive, actually carrying out any threats that they may have asked for, and how I'm going to approach and deal with this person. So what I'm actually doing is giving myself the best position possible to be able to deal with this person in the correct manner. Now that's really relevant, because if I approach the person incorrectly, I could instantly make a situation worse. So as an example of that, if we have, just to pick somebody, if we had a university professor, and I approached that university professor and I was like, all right, geezer, how you doing? Yeah, that sort of thing. That would instantly create a barrier between any conversation between us, because that's not the best way to approach a person of that nature necessarily. And in the same way, there's if you were talking to a group of builders and things, and you started acting all sort of posh and high and mighty, they would soon get the hump with you, right? There's no common ground, there's no commonality, you're not building any rapport, okay? And that's really important, especially if we're talking about a confrontational, aggressive kind of situation, because if we're going to bring that down, we've got to build some kind of rapport. We've got to give these guys a reason as to why we want to try and, you know, rein that in. And so building some kind of friendship, building some kind of rapport between us where we can at least see each other's point of view, that's really valid. And so we don't want to be making the situation worse, which we can easily do by approaching the person in the wrong manner. So look at the person. How are they dressed? Okay, so you can make a lot of assumptions about that. Now, because somebody's dressed really well doesn't necessarily mean that they are very well educated or very wealthy. In fact, quite often the very, very, very wealthy tend to just womble around in old shirts and welly boots and stuff like that, because they don't have to prove anything. The people that are showing off the expensive watches and things like that, they're actually the people that are trying to prove something. So they're the people that are trying to climb the ladder. They're the ones that are trying to act sort of more than they are quite often, and that's their way of doing that, is by being very ostentatious with materialistic things. And again, knowing that can be really helpful with regards to how we're going to talk to those people and address those people. By knowing those little things about them, it can make a big difference. Okay, and so when we're looking at that, we've got to use these tells to our advantage. So it's the same with speech. I mean, what we want to try and do is use mirroring things, right? Now, so the mirroring technique, you'll see this a lot within people talk about this when you're going to interview for a job. You'll also see it an awful lot when you watch television interviews. The interviewee and the interviewer, they have a reaction to each other, and what will quite often happen is the interviewer, they will try and mirror physically the body language that's coming across. So you'll quite often see that. So as an example of that, who was very good at that, who was very good at connecting with people like that, Ant and Dec were great for that sort of thing. So if you look at them, they were instantly very friendly, they were instantly very likable, they instantly put those people at their ease, and that was just one of the many things that they used to achieve that. So it's a very well known and recognized technique, and we can utilize that the same when we're trying to bring down any kind of aggressive behavior. So I don't mean mirror the aggressive behavior, but what I mean is mirror the person so that subconsciously they're feeling like there's a connection. Okay, and then when we go into some of the other sides of this, we'll look into this a lot more, and we'll start building out with this now, because what we're doing here is we're just looking at one small part of it, which is circles within circles, which is our first observations on the person and the situation. And so by taking all of these bits of information about the person, we can figure out how best to handle it, because it may be that a physical response might not be the best answer. It may be that an overly aggressive response might not be the best answer. However, it might be that an overly aggressive response is actually the correct answer at that point in time, because that's what will get me the reaction I need. It may be that by me appearing to be overly aggressive will actually make the other person back down. Or it might be that I can rationalize with this person. So as an example, if it's the aforementioned professor or doctor that we talked about earlier, then there's a very good chance that through debate, through conversation, I can rationalize that person to a point where where we can at least agree to disagree without it coming to blows. So guys, that's circles within circles. Okay, I'm happy to discuss more about this with anybody that's interested. These are just some of the principles that I sort of learned and applied over the years working the doors and working within security, and they're very, very beneficial, and they've been very helpful with regards to stopping aggression before it starts. So when it comes into soft skills, this is a really good one to look at. So guys, as I said, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.